As a child, we all long for a hero. As a society as a whole, we search for that leader that can be our hero. But as we mature and as we grow, it dawned on us that the hero is inside every one of us. And in the world's social media, we all start at zero. And slowly we search deep within ourselves to find who we are. And we have that moment of truth where we embrace that the hero that we've been searching for has been there all along. It is living deep inside of every one of us. And we start embracing that journey and we become that hero that we search for.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to episode 81 of Zero to Hero. Today, we are joined by an awesome guest. His name is Brian Morris. He is the founder of Bespoke by BMO. He's also the president of Legacy Sports Construction. So let's go ahead and bring him in. Brian, how are you this morning, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Well, thank you for joining me. Before we get started here, tell us a little bit about everything that you do. So you got a couple different things that we've got going on here. We've got Bespoke by BMO. So let's talk a little bit about that first. What is Bespoke?
Yeah, so it's kind of a fun, I guess, side hustle that I started about 7 years ago when I was the senior social athletics director at UMKC. Kareem Richardson, who was the head coach at the time, had a custom suit guy come by his office that was sent to him by Coach Pitino as a thank you gift after Louisville won the national championship. So Rick got all the assistant coaches custom suits. Well, Kareem was then at UMKC as the head coach. So, of course, he sent him down to my office. I was the head fundraiser for UMKC athletics. I wore suits or sport coats pretty much every day. And, the gentleman measured me up and, kind of told me how much it was going to be. And I thought pretty quickly, man, that guy looks just like me. I should do that. And really my goal was just to get my own stuff a little bit cheaper because I had to wear it so often. And it's kind of amazing how it started. I spent about 6 months just researching the process and identifying manufacturers and master tailors, and just started reaching out to people. And so about 6 months later, I started Bespoke by BMO. BMO is an old college baseball nickname that has really stuck with me professionally throughout my career. Most people across the country know me as BMO, so it's kind of funny. So it just kind of made sense. And I took that and started dressing myself, then started dressing Kareem, then started dressing the UMKC basketball staff, and then it really snowballed. Ended up doing a suit for Bill Self that he wore for his Naismith Hall of Fame induction, Bruce Weber at K-State, Joe Goldberg with the Royals, and now a lot of athletic directors and coaches throughout the country that I'm just friends with will call me and say, hey, I need something special. The big takeoff has been when you can start doing the custom liners that are printed out. So for example, this one, I don't know if you can see it, but it's just got pictures of my family all throughout the line.
How cool is that?
Awesome. And so I'll do a lot for client gifts now, where if we do a project for a university or a school, I'll get the president's jacket size or the AD's jacket size, and we'll do their school logo on the inside. And so it's really turned into a pretty cool little, like I said, side hustle. It's more for fun than anything else, but it's really taken off and allowed me to meet some pretty neat people and have some fun doing it.
Yeah, and put out some amazing looking jackets, obviously. I mean, that's really taking custom suits to a whole new level when you actually have your family on the inside or write the school logo. So that's really cool. So I mean, if we're watching a sporting event and we see a cool jacket with a logo inside, we know it came from BMO. So that's pretty awesome, man.
I have yet to have one of my jackets on the NFL or the NBA draft, even though I've done some professionals. So I think that's my next goal, is to get one of those, because some of those styles are crazy, though. They're taking things to the next level with some of those draft outfits.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you'll be able to talk Andy out of the Hawaiian shirts, but if we can get him in a jacket, maybe we can do a custom Hawaiian shirt for Andy or something like that. Yeah. That'd be awesome. So tell us a little bit about what you guys do over there at Legacy Sports Construction as well.
Yeah, so Legacy Sports Construction, what I tell people, we really focus on that horizontal sports construction. So artificial turf is obviously a big part of what we do, tracks, lights, kind of your dugouts. So a lot of our work is done. Our headquarters are actually in Melbourne, Florida. I'm in Kansas City. So, and I've really been tasked with growing our Midwest market as president of the company. And but we do a lot of Division II work, a lot of NAIA, a lot of high schools. And the company, like I said, is about 5 years old. Came out of Mammoth Sports Construction, which is another Kansas company. That's where I was prior. That's where the owner of our company was prior as well. So we reconnected, and it's been fun. You know, athletics is always. I come from a background of collegiate athletics administration of almost 2 decades, and people want to work with somebody they trust more than anything, and you develop those relationships over a period of time. And it's my heart is service and serving clients and people, and this is a great way to meet a need that they have and do it with integrity and follow through, which is something sometimes in the construction world, and especially in the artificial turf world, is lacking. So we really try to be different and set ourselves apart that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a vital point, especially for younger athletes, right? I mean, we think we see it on a big stage, right? When, at the Super Bowl, right? As
Yeah.
the latest example, right? I mean, that I don't think there's been a turf setting that's been more talked about that I've ever heard than that field down at the Super Bowl, right? And luckily there were no massive injuries that came out of that. But if you look at some of the athletes like Odell Beckham Jr., right, who
Yeah.
ruptured things on multiple occasions, right? Probably predominantly because of the turf. It's extremely important. So what are some of the things that you guys are doing when you're, designing this turf that to really keep the athlete in mind?
Sure. And not to get into what I call nerd turf talk, but
I
there
love it.
is, yeah, there is a lot of misinformation out there about turf. So first of all, Beckham Jr. was injured on that surface at I think in Vegas and luckily that wasn't a product that we represent, so that kind of helps.
Yeah.
And then you saw the grass and the slippery grass that was with the Chiefs, and everybody saw that, right? So that is actually a field that they can pull out and then grow the grass, and then they can put it back into the stadium. If you saw some of the people, that grass experts, they said that they over irrigated it, and so it was slippery. And the Chiefs played down in Mexico. There's a lot of issues on that field, so it's kind of interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about player safety first and foremost. You have to have a safe surface, and not just for your the pro teams who have billions of dollars in assets on that field, and players whose injuries can impact their lives and their families forever. But at the college level, especially, and then the high school level too, that there's a lot of ramifications to injuries that people don't think about. I mean, how many kids do you know that were on their way to Division I full ride scholarship and get injured, and then they're done, they can't play anymore? Or that athlete who, I had a good friend in college who during his bowl game tore his ACL the second to last play of the game, and was projected to be a top 3rd round draft pick and didn't get drafted. So there's just so much tied around injury. So I think for us, safety is of paramount importance. Closely followed behind that is durability and a return on the investment for the school. These projects are not cheap. They do pay for themselves over a period of time, but that upfront expense can be a lot for a high school or a college or a small college, or pro teams, they change them out every year, 2 years, so it's not as big of a deal. But we really want to focus, one, on safety, and then secondly on durability and longevity of that turf to create the safest and longest lasting surface that we possibly can. And again, you get into some of the nuances and the false statements about turf. There really is very, very little difference in the research coming down from the NFL that natural grass is safer than turf. And what we talk to our clients a lot about is, you're comparing the natural grass of, say, Arrowhead Stadium, that they play on it 8 times a year. They fly the sod in twice a year. They have full-time groundskeepers that all they do is focus on that field, compared to your local high school where, my high school had one guy that mowed it on top of doing everything else, and had divots all over the place. So, then you start talking about, well, turf is substantially safer than natural grass. at the high school level, if you're relieving divots and rain spots and wear and tear, and then also at the college level too, oftentimes that's the case. They don't have the staff to really keep those stadiums up, or they need to use it more often, especially at your high school level, your small college level. They're not just using that for 8 games a year. They're using that for, JV football and 8th grade football and varsity football, and then soccer, or a lot of times at the collegiate level, it's soccer and football. So it's got to be multi-use, and that's why you see that turf's really not going to go away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it should, right? I think we've taken massive leaps and bounds with turf, right? As we've learned more about it. I remember when it came out, it was almost like a sheet of carpet on top of concrete, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, you're 100% right. I mean, I remember playing in high school and there was divots all over the place, right? And then they finally ended up. I went to Park Hill School District. They changed out the field up here at AstroTurf, and it looks amazing, right? It's fun to play on for the kids, and obviously, if it's keeping ankles healthy and everything like that, all for it. I'm about it. I love it. So
yeah, that initial turf was it's kind of concrete with like a tennis ball covering over it. It was yeah, the guys had to wear those the stickers, if you will, on their arms to keep from all the rug burns. It's definitely different from what it was when it first came out.
Absolutely. And then you go to some of these high schools where they just never water it, right? And it might as well be that same turf. I mean, it's just as hard as that concrete that was on it. So cool. I thank you for sharing a little bit about what you guys are doing on a wider scale, right? Let's get into a little bit more about who Brian Morris is. So putting aside Bespoke, right? Putting aside all the great construction that you guys are doing around the country, who is Brian Morris? Who's BMO, man?
Yeah, man, that's it's always interesting when you're asked to kind of talk about yourself. Like, when you reached out to me, you said you're doing a Zero to Hero podcast. I was like, well, I'm not much of a hero, so I don't know what to how to answer that. But I would say, first of all, my faith is a big part of who I am, and the things that we've gone through as a family in our life has been impacted by our faith and the strength to get through. I'm a husband to an amazing wife, Tracy, who really is the better half of me. Most of my clients would rather deal with her than they would me. So it's she's definitely a big part of who BMO is. And then I'm the father to 6. So
wow.
I tell people we had 4 on purpose, and then 2 surprise twins that are 8 years younger than the other ones. So that's who I am. At the heart of who I am. And then professionally, I'm somebody that has had a great and blessed career to be able to work in collegiate athletics for as long as I did, and to experience working with some amazing coaches and leaders on campus, leaders in the community, to moving into the private sector, into the construction world, but still having that sports tie has been a lot of fun. So yeah, that's kind of who I am. I'm passionate. 3rd generation Kansas State University grad. You can see the Wildcat helmet behind me. And I live here in Kansas City, and our family absolutely loves it. So yeah, kind of in a quick rundown, that's who I say I am.
I love it. That's a great synopsis, man. 6 kids. That is incredible. I have 2 myself, and we already feel outnumbered, so I can't imagine having 6. I'm sure the age gap helps a little bit, but man.
Yeah, if you want to borrow some, let me know. We got.
I'm already trying to dish mine out as it is.
Yeah, we got someone we can lend to you.
Yeah, all right. Maybe we can get them together. Just let them play on their own. That's awesome.
There you go.
So you mentioned that Legacy came out of Mammoth, right? And you and your partner kind of linked back up. So as we kind of mentioned in the beginning of the show in that intro video, right? Starting a company means we've got to start social media channels, right? So tell us a little bit about that social media journey and really starting that from 0, right? 0 followers, 0 likes, 0 posts to where you are now.
Yeah, and quite frankly, that's been something that we have been working on and really need to dive into a lot more. We've really been focused right now on, getting those projects and building those relationships under the new company. So we have that material to be able to really get out there and to grow a social media presence. And a lot of companies, as you get bigger, you have for a team that's able to handle that for you. We're still at the level right now where Patrick or myself or one project manager maybe is uploading those. So that's actually just something we talked about on Friday. Hey, with all of these current projects that we have, we've got to start being better in social media posting. It's such a big part of just where people are going to see what are you doing, and branding your company, branding yourself, and getting that word out so that people are, you're just continually, people are seeing the excellent work that your company does. So one, I'll be honest, I think that's something we've got to do a much better job on at Legacy, and are committed to doing that. Some of the other companies that I've worked have really have those full-time teams that have been able to go in and really create that presence and the consistent presence and a very strategic alignment between their vision of growth and the use of social media. And that's something that we are implementing. You kind of one of those chicken or the egg things. Do you post often on social media if you don't have the content and so that's where just compiling that content is a nonstop journey and job too. So we're definitely working on it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's always a work, right? It's nobody's ever got it 100% perfect, and you are right? I mean, it's hard to figure out content to post if we don't really have the content to post, right? But I think it kind of goes back to what you said earlier, Brian. People want to know that they can trust you, right? It's all about working with people that you can trust. I think maybe we could talk about that more off air, but I think that's something where you guys could really capitalize on. You've got the industry knowledge, right? You guys are likable people. Get out there and just talk about what you're doing. I think people will really resonate with that for sure. But I appreciate you sharing. It's quite a journey, and I think the number one advice that we give to entrepreneurs is just put it out there, man. Put something out there. People want to see something. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I appreciate
follow a lot of Grant Cardone and what he does. I don't know if you remember Grant. He's just like, make people sick and tired of seeing you on social media.
Man, 10 times a day, man.
You're always posting something, and I probably default to the other way. I'm like, if we don't have anything worthwhile that somebody wants to read, we're not gonna throw it out there. But Grant's all about posting and posting in every different platform you possibly can. So we'll get there. But that's great advice from your guys' end.
He definitely likes to stay top of mind, man, and I think there is a fine line where I'm like, Grant, you need to chill a little bit. But hey, I'm not flying around in private jets, so who am I to tell Grant Cardone what to do with his social media?
It works for him, and it works in what he does and his brand, and obviously he's got a great story to tell of what he where he came from and what he has built and the empire he's built. But then now, obviously, with his training and books, all that stuff, it definitely serves him well to have such a constant presence.
Yeah, he's pumping it out there for sure. Yeah, Gary Vee is another one that I like to follow, who's real good at putting that content out there. And he actually got asked the question, do you ever feel like you're posting too much, right? Or like, what's the right number to post? I think his answer was like 10 to 15 times a day. And they were like, don't you feel like that's overkill? He's like, well, here's the thing about algorithms is people aren't going to see all 10 to 15 of those posts, right? They're going to see 2 maybe or 3, right? But enough to stay top of mind, but they're not going to be bombarded with it. So another tidbit from one of the kings out there for sure.
A gentleman that I've been following here recently is Andy Elliott. I don't know if you the Elliott group. They're more sales driven, but he had that exact same point in one of his recent posts. He said he loves the negative feedback that he gets on his posts because that just drives the algorithm. And so people, he said, hey, thanks for the free exposure because it's putting me back at the top of what I'm posting. And there's definitely an art and a science to social media and growing your brand and doing it strategically. And that's why somebody needs to work with a company like you guys that can help direct them and guide them really in the best way to go about it.
Absolutely. I appreciate the shameless shout out there for sure. For sure. Yeah, it's funny. We had somebody on the show end of last year, Aaron Hoffman from Sunflower Dental Lab. So they do, teeth cases, things like that. He was talking about, he was posting cases and he got a little bit of negative feedback, on why does it look like that? And at first he got in his feelings, he's like, man, why are you coming on my page talking about negative stuff, right? Everybody's a little prideful, especially when you're making teeth, right? Of the work that you do. But he took a step back and he's like, you know what? You're right. Why does it look like that? Let me figure out how to make it better, right? So not only does it boost that stuff, but I think sometimes it's legit complaints, right? Or gripes that people have that we can humble ourselves and we can make ourselves better as well. So good to have some of that from both sides.
Absolutely. And if you're not learning and not trying to get better, what are you doing?
That's it.
Yeah. I think as a leader in any organization, having a humble attitude and a teachable attitude is imperative, because you can always do something better. You can always do better on social media. You can always be better as a father. You can always be better as a community leader. And to be able to have somebody that will speak to you and give you that advice is awesome. But you have to be able to take the shout from the peanut gallery too and say, okay, is there some truth to that? And if there is, how do I incorporate that to become better? Or you can get, kind of frustrated and upset, and they don't know what they're talking about. Well, every piece of criticism or advice can be used to make you better if you have the right outlook.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some haters out there that are hating just to hate, but
Always.
some of them are actually trying to be constructive, which is a good thing. So know the difference, right? That's a big thing as well. Now, Brian, every superhero has a defining moment, right? What do you think yours is when it comes to your life and your career?
Yeah, so my defining moment was kind of interesting. When I started, I had a direct goal of being a Division I athletics director, and every single thing that I did, from interning in the athletics department at K-State while I was an undergrad, to my first job at the University of Oklahoma, to each job after that, was all with the goal to be a Division I athletic director. And in the Christian faith, one of the quotes they talk about is, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans for your life, because he's like, yeah, I got something different. Well, in late 2017, our daughter, who's fifth grade at the time, was diagnosed with bone cancer. And she's doing well now. She's going to be a junior at Elliott North, and really involved in the sports medicine program. But at that time, we also found out we were having the twins unexpectedly. And
lots going on.
A lot going on. And so that door, we just knew that this isn't going to work. I can't be gone as much as I'm gone. I can't be traveling. Being the main fundraiser for UMKC, I was very outward into the community and was going to all the events. And so that was really kind of the defining moment in our family's life, where your career takes a back seat to your family, and just, what do you want to be? And there's a pastor that I really look up to, and other people have said this, but he said, at the end of the day, my goal is to be a hero in my own home. And that's very hard to do, and that's a huge challenge. But my wife and I made the decision, okay, I need to step away from collegiate athletics, and was lucky enough to be able to get into the construction world through relationships that I had. I was approached, got a phone call out of the blue from a donor who was CEO of a construction company, and then got back into the sports construction side. So I would say that's a really big defining moment in my life, to where you think you have a career path, and then that door shut, and you're forced, for reasons that you just could never even think of happen, and so then you kind of pivot and you go a new direction.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes about who you are, Brian, because I think that those things happen every day, right, across the country. And I think it takes a lot to step away from something that you've worked so hard to build, right? And I think a lot of people will do it, but I think there's quite a few out there that wouldn't either, right? So I commend you on that, and you're 100% right. If you're not a hero in your own house, you can't really be a hero to anybody else, I don't feel like. So man, I appreciate you sharing that with me, for sure. We've got my boss out there in the audience said God has a plan. It's always isn't always what we think. It's 100% right. I don't know if we actually found it on a Bible verse as well, Jeremiah 29:11. So we're definitely big believers over here, and we share in those sentiments as well.
Well, so I'm a preacher's kid, and to my dad's chagrin, my first tattoo is on the inside of my arm, and it's Jeremiah 29:11-13. So
you're kidding.
Yeah. And that's been, God does have a plan, to prosper us and not to harm us. And but yeah, a lot of times it's not in the way we would choose to do it, or ever think about doing it. And, but it's always right at the end, and perfect, whether it's on this side of eternity or not. But yeah. So, and when I talk about being a hero in my own home, I fail daily at that.
You and me both, brother. Hey, you know what? Where, and I can tell already just from talking to you, where we are succeeding is where we're showing up, man. And I think that's the most important thing, right? I mean, no father out there is perfect. I don't think there's any boss out there that's perfect, right? We all make mistakes. That's what makes us human. But you're showing up. Yeah,
showing
no,
up.
so you are a hero, right?
There
And
you
I
go.
think a lot of people would share in that sentiment as well. Now, all heroes have attributes that really kind of define them, right? What do you feel are the attributes that define what a hero is?
I think first of all, it's caring. If you look at
Yeah.
even just going to Marvel comic heroes, or uh, I'm not. My kids are huge into Marvel and all. I'm not. I need to be better. My brother-in-laws are actually dressed up as stormtroopers sometimes for Star
Oh
Wars.
man, that's
I had to go
awesome.
watch Star Wars before I met them just to be able to have fun. Be able
So
to
you
have
can answer
fun.
the question, right?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I know who Luke Skywalker is. But I think first of all, it's caring, and then
Yeah,
I think one that you mentioned is showing up.
yeah,
Like all of those heroes show up when they're needed, and it might seem very simplistic, but they care enough to be there, and then they do show up, and then they all have character. Like that's the thing. Pretty much all of them are somebody that's trustworthy and has character, and so you start looking at a hero or who's the hero in your life or the people that really impacted you, and I think those are the attributes that really begin to stand out. Strength and integrity and trustworthiness and showing up, a lot of the buzzwords that we all like to use, but I think it comes with the heart of caring first and foremost,
yeah.
and then showing up, as you mentioned earlier. That's I was at a conference over the weekend, and it was a lot of Division One athletic directors and senior leaders, and one of the gentlemen that got up and spoke talked about that. He said, our goal as a leader is showing up for your team, showing up when it's hard, leading through adversity. And a lot of times in today's culture, people aren't showing up. It gets hard. They run behind a keyboard, or they want to run and not be active. So that's kind of who I envision a hero being, outside of being able to fly, or Aquaman or somebody like that. One of the many movies that I've been watching on Disney Plus with my 5-year-old twins lately. So
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. I mean, if you look at one of kind of the more prolific superheroes as of recently, Iron Man, right? I mean, that's kind of where his origin story starts, right? Is he's selling all these weapons to warlords and everything like that, ends up getting hit by one of them, and all of a sudden he cares, right? I mean, it
mhm.
really made him care and realize what was going on, and that's where the suit comes from, right? Is I've done wrong for so long, let me switch one thing,
Yep.
right? Switch to caring about these people, and all of a sudden we've got Iron Man born. So
Yeah.
yeah, 100%, you nailed it, man. I think you got it right on the head. Now, if you did, and I'm gonna force you into this one a little bit, okay? No, you're not the big superhero guy, but if you had to choose one superhero that best relates to Brian Morris, who would that be? And tell us a couple reasons why.
You know, I would probably, even though I just bashed, and I don't know if he's a superhero or not, but I would say Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
reason I would say Luke was his power came from a force beyond himself, and
Yeah.
so he was very hesitant, very stupid at first, still stupid even later. Made a lot of mistakes, but every time he tapped into the force and that power behind him is when he did great things. And I think for me, that's probably who I would relate to the most, without having my own power. It's all an external gift or external power to drive me. Would be him, or somebody like Batman, who there's nothing special. He just came up with the cool gadgets and had money to be able to go do that. Don't have Bruce Wayne money, obviously, but that would be pretty sweet. So I would say probably a combination of those two.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I always had Star Wars compared to the Bible for me growing up. So I love that answer as
Yeah.
well. The Force, the good side of the Force and the bad side of the Force, and they're equally powerful, right? It's
Yep.
just a matter of what you
Absolutely.
do with it and which route you go down. So, yeah, I think that's fantastic. So, Brian, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. How can people get involved with you? How can they order a custom suit from you if they want to go that route? How can they get a field built from you if they want to go that route? Or how can they just follow along with this journey that you guys are on?
Sure. Yeah. Legacy Sports is our Twitter handle that we mainly will use. You can go to legacysportsconstruction.com. My suit stuff is at bespokebybmo.com. I need to do a better job of updating that personally. So much what I do is word of mouth and right now. But yeah, I mean, those would be the best ways to kind of follow us and see what we're up to. And contact information is on there. You can reach out. I'd love to help you in any way. And even if it's just talking, if it's something where you're going through a battle and, kind of, especially my wife has really been able, and my daughter as well, to be able to impact a lot of lives in the cancer world, especially when young people have been diagnosed with cancer, or families that their children have been diagnosed. My wife will get calls from, Children's Mercy and other hospitals often, and they'll say, "Hey, do you mind talking to this family?" So, a lot of times
Amazing.
that's just as big a deal as what we do in the business world, is trying to impact lives personally. So if there's something that somebody's going through, and maybe as horrible as cancer or childhood disease, please feel free to reach out as well. And again, my cell phone number is at legacysportsconstruction.com. My email address is bmo at legacysportsconstruction.com. Love to hear from you and help in any way.
Man, that is awesome. That's so above and beyond, and I absolutely love that. And it is huge, right? I mean, that's so big that you're willing to just pick up the phone and talk with people. So I appreciate that for sure. Brian, you're an amazing guy, man. Again, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a true pleasure for me to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me, and keep up the good work.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Everybody out there, thanks for tuning in.
Hey, are we still live? Hey guys, we're still live. Hey guys, this is Kevin Kwok, founder of J29 Creative Group. So who are we? We're a marketing agency here in Kansas City. We're all about a holistic approach to marketing that builds your brand and nurtures online community. But to be honest with you, you guys don't care.